Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. It is officially Grand Finals week, playoffs week here in the Overwatch League, and so today, while we are in the midst of these matches, I am going to start doing my awards for this season, and today I'm going to be doing my role stars for all three roles this season. Now, if you're new around here, you've not seen one of these videos in the past, before I list off my 4 role stars, I will also be naming 4 honorable mentions. I really do want to highlight the best of the season, and it's really tough to do that when you only have 4 role stars. So I do like to at least shout out 4 other players that I really like, who I think were really close. Some roles, getting to 4 honorable mentions is a little bit more challenging. Some of them, you could have like 15 honorable mentions, and I'd feel like they're all valid. But 4, just like the Overwatch League, 4 role stars. And then I'm also going to throw out some honorable mentions so you guys can let me know your thoughts on my role stars in the comments down below. But without further ado, let's jump in and let's get started with our role stars. I'm going to start with the DPS and the honorable mentions for my DPS role stars. This is the hardest role for sure. There's so many great players you could put on this list. I mean, I have 4 honorable mentions, and there's players I don't have on this list as honorable mentions that I could throw out as well. There's just a lot, and I'll talk about some of those in a second. But my honorable mentions are Kai of the Atlanta Reign, Zest of the Philadelphia Fusion, and Merritt and Pelican of the Houston Outlaws. All 4 of these players had great seasons. I think Merritt and Pelican in particular were really underrated this year. They were super consistently good for that Outlaws squad in ways that I think not a lot of people expected. Pelican we knew would be good because he was the Rookie of the Year last year. He was an incredible player last year, but even this year he took it another step up again, playing really well alongside Merritt, who a lot of people didn't expect Merritt to be as good as he was. He was one of the best sojourners in the league consistently this year. He's been really good this year, so that was really nice to kind of see from him. Kai, carry performances for the Atlanta Reign, their success heavily on his back a lot of the season. Zest, another player who was very consistently good for the Philadelphia Fusion. Kind of surprised a lot of people. A lot of people thought MN3 would be the DPS star for this team. Well, MN3 had a lot of really great moments. Zest was the consistent carry for this team who did a lot of work for that Fusion roster. Lots of other players, like I said, I could have mentioned. Shy's not on this list. I don't have Fitz on this list. I don't have a bunch of other people on this list. MN3 you could put on this list if you really wanted to. There's a lot of really great players. Sparkle, Doha, there's a lot of really big names that I didn't have on my list or in my honorable mentions. But it was a really tough list to narrow down to just 4 and even just to 8. So keep that in mind. But let's go in to my actual DPS role stars, the 4 players who I think best represented the role this season. They're in no particular order. I literally just wrote down names in a random order. So first one is Proper. I think everybody knows Proper is going to be on this list. He's the front runner for the Rookie of the Year award and one of the MVP front runners as well. He's had an incredible year. His DPS performances this season were unreal. His Tracer, his Genji, his Hanzo, even his Widowmaker, all incredible. He can play pretty much anything you need him to play. Very consistent. Essentially was the reason the San Francisco Shock had success this year was off the back of Proper. He was an incredible player this season. Absolutely one of the 4 best DPS players in the league this year. Next, I have Lip. Maybe one of the more interesting ones on this list. I think everyone knows Lip has been a good player this year. He's had a really good year. I think people don't necessarily realize how great of a year he's had. The Shanghai Dragons have been pretty up and down at times this season. Their record is still very good. They finished 5 overall in the league, but I don't know if people really recognize how consistently good Lip was this season, right? When the Dragons struggled, Lip was not struggling, right? Lip was a consistent carrier for this team. He did very well for this team every single week. The metas where they struggled, Lip didn't really look as bad. In the past, one of the things I've always been kind of critical of with Lip is his Sombra, his EMPs, for example. His EMPs were never that good. He was always every time a Grady was a Sombra, but then he just never really looked great when it came to the EMP usage, right, on his signature hero of Sombra. But we saw this year, we saw him play a lot of other things. We saw him play a lot of really good play, on Tracer, on the hit scan role. Really good year for him in a way that I think has just been kind of a little bit, less than recognized. And Who Are You also as his kind of secondary, really, really good. But Lip, top DPS player in hero damage per 10 this year, second DPS and solo kills per 10 this year. So, like, really good stats from him. Very, very, very impressive numbers from him. I think he's had a really, really good year, and I think he 100% deserves a role star for this season. The next one is Kevster. Not really surprising. A lot of people expected Kevster to be on this list. Kevster's been really, really solid this season. One of the leaders in eliminations per 10 this year. Among DPS, he's fourth in final blows per 10. Two of the people above him are Who Are You and Stalker, who split a lot of time, so he's even tied with Stalkers. He's really tied for third in final blows per 10. Proper is above him. Kevster, really, really consistently good this year. Really good seasons from him. Two-time champion, of course, with the Gladiator. So really, really, really great performances out of him. I don't think there needs to be a lot of explanation for why he's on this list. He's been really incredible. He's been one of the best players this season. And I think you look at just his body of work so far this year, absolutely makes sense why he is on this list. And I think he is one of the absolute superstars of the Overwatch League on the DPS role. Finally, I have Prophet on here. Fun fact about Prophet. Prophet has never been a role star ever in his career, which is wild. And I think Prophet's an interesting player because he doesn't have the same statistical kind of highs that other players in the league have. Not to say he's bad, of course. He just doesn't have the same statistical kind of high, for example, his final blows per 10 isn't as high as someone like Proper, who's at 9.9, or Kevster, who's 9.5, or Lip, who's 8.6. Prophet's sitting at 7.4. There's a lot of other players who have done better than him. His eliminations per 10, also not as impressively high as some of the other players on this list. But I think Prophet is just such an important player to the success of his team. And he's not a carry guy in the sense that he will go and he'll do a lot of stuff by himself and on his own. And he's not going to be the type of player who kind of goes off and carries and gets all these solo kills. It's not really his play style. He supports his team a lot. And he always plays a lot of, he plays on Reflex DPS, which I think is the role that doesn't typically get those final blows as much. That's always going to fall more on your hit scan DPS players like Fitz or Stalker, whose Stalker's final blows per 10 are 9.5. Right? He has a lot. And also, of course, there was the stage where Prophet was playing Brig, and so that obviously affected his stats as well. His stats are going to get lower because of his time on Brig. But Prophet has been an incredible player this year. He's been one of the hard carries of the season. He has been incredible this year. He has never gotten Role Star. It's ridiculous that he's never gotten Role Star. He's one of the best players in the league. Absolutely the GOAT of the Overwatch scene. And I think that he absolutely deserves not only Role Star, but also definitely deserves a nod for the MVP as well. He just has been such an incredible player his entire career. He needs to be a Role Star at least once. Let's move on to the support role. We're going to start with my honorable mentions, of course. And for that, I have Violet of the San Francisco Shock, Twilight, and Chorong of the Toronto Defiant, and Izayaki of the Shanghai Dragons. Violet's been pretty good this year. Of course, he's had to pick up the Lucio, which is a hero that he played a bit last year, but it's never been kind of his strong suit. He looked a lot better on it this year. He was the best flex support who had switched over to main support this year, in my opinion. I still think it was a down year for him in terms of what we normally see from him, but he was still one of the best in the league, which just shows you how good he's been, historically. That this wasn't his best year, and he was still one of the best supports in the league, and I think he deserves at least a mention just for his ability to kind of switch over from another role. Twilight and Chorong, I think, were probably the most solid support duo outside of one this season. I thought they were both really, really good. I thought they were a big part of the success of the Defiant in the Summer Showdown. I thought they deserved a nod. And Izayaki, I think, has been really solid as well for the Dragons. I think the Dragons have had a lot of up and down performances this year. Izayaki was consistently good, and every time he got to play his strengths and get to play, like his Zen or his Ana, and really get to kind of make plays, the team just looked so much better because that's just where Izayaki thrives. And so that is why I have him as an honorable mention. But let's move on to my actual 4 role stars for the support role. And let's start with, I think, the most obvious one we have from the LA Gladiators, Shu. Shu has had a fantastic season, which flex supports always have at least some great performances, but he has been one of the most kind of standout players. He was one of the best last year. He had a lot of great moments last year, and he continued success this year. There was, of course, the Summer Showdown where he did get subbed out, and he didn't really play because the meta wasn't really in his favor. But I think the fact that the team struggled without him there kind of does show you just how important he is to this team's success and just how good he is as a player. As long as Shu is in, the Gladiators are always a contender. They're always a threat. They always have a chance to win every game they play. He is that good of a player. He just carries games. He brings things into just unreal levels of support play. I think he has been the best support player over the past 2 seasons, consistently and regularly, and I think that he is one of the players who I think I look at as kind of the standard of what flex support play should be. We look at Jonak from 2018, how he kind of changed the role, and I think Shu is kind of the heir to that, and I think we've seen how Shu has just evolved over time, and he was good in 2019. We all knew he was good in 2019. In 2020, he was good. But when he joined the Gladiators, he became elite. He became great. He became a legend. And I think that we are continuing to see just how good he is as he continues to thrive on the LA Gladiators. Next, I have Fielder from the Dallas Fuel. Flexport on that team, you have to give Fielder a ton of credit. He leads the league in healing per 10,266 healing per 10. The next highest is 9,900 from Ultraviolet. So Fielder leads the league in healing. You have to give him a lot of credit for that. He's also just been a very important piece for this team's success. He has been one of the most consistently strong players for this team. He has not really struggled. He has not really let up from his past couple of seasons of success. He has been one of the most impressive players so far this season, and I absolutely think that he is deserving of a role star. I think he's one of the top 2 flex sports in the league right now. He is just continually improving and continually getting better. And I think that when you look at what he does and a lot of what his kind of play style is, it really favors what the Dallas Fuel like to do, right? Fielder, one of the best players at Moira. And it's kind of funny because a lot of people talk about how Moira is like a low-skill hero. I think a lot of people in Overwatch League don't play Moira right. Fielder does. Fielder knows how Moira works. Fielder, his Ana, his Zen, his Batiste, whatever he needs to run, he runs it in a really, really high level. I'm really excited to see him potentially play Kiriko. I think he might be one of those Kiriko players who's really incredible. I think Fielder's a really great player. I think he deserves every mention of role star this year. So to me, no-brainer, he is one of the role stars. Next is his partner in the support line for the Dallas Fuel, Chio. I think Chio has had an incredible year in the support role. I don't think this is a big year for the main support players. This has definitely been one of those years where the flex supports really came in and played a big role. You know, different metas and different seasons, sometimes you have more main support presence, sometimes more flex support presence. Chio really was one of the few main supports that really stood out to me this year as an incredibly talented and incredibly consistent main support player. He did a lot of work this year. I think that as a rookie main support, that was one of the areas we looked at this team last season, where Jexe was pretty good, but he wasn't incredible. He could have been, a little bit more. They wanted more out of what they had. And I think Chio comes in and he was exactly what they needed. He brought this team to the next level. They're the number 1 seed in the world, and I think a lot of that is because of the performances of not only Hanbin, but also Chio had really great performances so far this season. And I think you have to give a lot of credit and a lot of love to someone who I think may have been the best main support this season. Another main support, though, I think had a really, really good year, and is also a rookie, is Vindame from the Seoul Dynasty. Vindame surprised me. I didn't know much about Vindame this year. I thought he was just going to kind of be someone who's going to come in and fill for Anamo now that he was gone from this team. I've been really impressed by him, not just his main support play, but also his Zenyatta play. He played Zenyatta in the double flex support meta in the midseason madness, and he looked really, really good on that role. And Vindane was also the big star support player for the Dynasty during the Summer Showdown, right? He played the Lucio when they needed him. And for their, Brigitte play, they had Profit. Vindane was unsubbable for this team, and he was incredible this season. His flexibility, his ability to play literally every hero they needed from him was a huge reason why the Seoul Dynasty were as successful as they were this year. I think he had a great season. I think you have to look at all of the work he did. His flexibility to me really is a big factor to it. Not only was he a really good player on the Lucio, which is really where the main sports are getting their names now, but the fact that he was able to play the Zenyatta as well as he did showed me that he really is a super valuable support player and one who they were willing to trade away creative that they'd had for multiple seasons to get Iris to support Vindame's strengths. I don't know if they knew Vindame would be that good when they got him, but he certainly has impressed me a lot since he joined this league and since he joined this team. I think he absolutely has been one of the 4 best supports of the league. He is my final support role star. Moving on to the final role, we have Tank. My honorable mentions for this one, I have Kaluge from the San Francisco Shock, Fury from the Philadelphia Fusion, Hawk from the Atlanta Reign, and Hadi from the London Spitfire. Kaluge surprised me this year. I didn't really expect much from him. Obviously, after Super's retirement, I kind of thought Kaluge would just kind of be like a somewhat middling replacement, but he's been really good this year. The thing that I think holds him back from being a full role star is just the fact that he was not really able to play everything they needed out of him. And a lot of the teams this season, generally speaking, looked better or were very, very good because they had a tank who could play at least everything they kind of needed him to. Or if they took that player out, the team's performances were somewhat noticeably weaker or something like that. Kaluge, very, very close. I almost had him on the list. I think he was probably my 5th. Very, very good season from him. Fury, I love Fury. I'm a Fury fan. I've been a Fury fan forever. I think he had a really great year, especially the second half of the season. His Diva, his Zarya. I thought Junker Queen was pretty good, but I don't think he was consistently good enough throughout the season to get a top 4 spot. Hawk, same type of thing. Really good at the beginning of the year. Fell off a bit in the second half of the year. And Hadi, really good player. He's been kind of a huge part of the success of this London Spitfire. Big surprise from his kind of lackluster year last year. But I think that the team kind of plays into the fact that Hadi is really good at Reinhardt and doesn't play a ton of other heroes. And that to me is a little more of a knock against him. And so for me, Hadi just sits here as an honorable mention. Let's move into my actual 4 role stars for Tank. My first one is Hanbin of the Dallas Fuel. This isn't a surprise. Hanbin's had like the best season. He leads the league in eliminations per 10, leads the league in hero damage per 10. He has been incredible this season. He has been one of the top players of the year. He has consistently been one of the best. And I think that you have to look and see kind of what he's done on Zarya in particular. His Junker Queen is really, really good. I mean, he had that mega play in the finals against the Shock that to me was just kind of like a moment of, wow, this guy is incredible. He's playing out of his mind. He's been consistently one of the best pieces of the Dallas Fuel / Paris Eternal. Ever since Rush has joined the league, he's basically been the best player that Rush has had. And I think that it's going to be a really, really, really interesting playoffs just because of how good Hanbin is as a player. He gets to really kind of show how strong he gets to be and gets to kind of show out. He's been so good this year, and I think you have to give him a nod here for that. The other tank who I think is pretty obvious is Smurf of the Seoul Dynasty. He's another MVP caliber player. He's been a main tank his entire career, right? He's been known for playing Winston, for playing Reinhardt occasionally, but really kind of the Winston guy. And let me tell you, he still plays a really mean Winston. But we've also seen him play Zarya well, and Junker Queen well, and Sigma well. He has played everything well that the Seoul Dynasty have needed him to play, and he's played it at an elite level. And this is when he's competing against tanks in the APAC region, like Void, and Fury, and Fate, and Gaga, right? These are some big name tanks who have had a lot of success. Some of them who've played heroes that Smurf is playing for years, when Smurf was only really just kind of playing them at the Overwatch League level for the first time. And he still was an elite level player. Another one of those guys who just looks to be an MVP candidate just based on everything we've seen from him. He's had such a good year. And it is a shame that we were robbed of more Smurf in the Midseason Madness, because I would have loved to see a lot more Smurf in that midseason tournament. We get to see more of him in the playoffs, luckily, and hopefully a good run from the Soul Dynasty, because Smurf has just had an incredible year on the tank role. And I think that if you just look at all of the success this team had because of Smurf, it's pretty obvious he would be on this list. My next tank role star is Dante of the Houston Outlaws. And I had a lot of kind of people that I considered for this tank spot, but I ultimately went with Dante for one big reason, and that is that Dante, in a new role, changed this Houston Outlaws roster in incredible ways. The team looked significantly better with Dante in the lineup. This is a team that had Piggy, that has Doge, and they still run Dante in the tank. And it was in the beginning of the season on the Doomfist, on the Junker Queen later on in the season, on the Zarya in the later portion of the season. Dante's playing it all, and the team looks much better with Dante in than they did with Piggy in, and than they've done with Doge. And I think that you have to consider that when you consider your role stars. Dante is one of the most important players to this Outlaws roster. This is the 6th overall team in the region. Not even the region, in the world. They have the 6th best record in the world with Dante at tank. If I told you at the beginning of the season that the Houston Outlaws would get 6th this season overall with Dante as their tank, most people would have said you are out of your mind. But here we are, top 4 in the West, number 6 overall, with Dante at tank. And he's had a really good year. And it's hard to really kind of deny how good he's been. It's a weird look for him. It's obviously not the role that he's usually playing, but he still is great. He's still doing all that he does really, really well. And I'm really happy to see that Dante here in the tank role has done a ton to put himself in the conversation to be one of the top players at his role this season. And I think that he 100% deserves to be a role star for this season. Final role star I have is Reiner from the LA Gladiators. Despite his challenges on Junker Queen in Jotes, he was still a very, very good player this season. In the first half of the season, he was in the conversation for MVP. He was that good in the first half of the year. And in the Countdown Cup, he went back to his kind of normal, really solid self. He's looked very, very good this year. He's been a surprise. The fact that he was able to bench space pretty much the entire season, he's going to tell you a lot. Yes, he doesn't play Junker Queen very well. But I think that when you consider what this team has been able to do with him throughout the season, I think that it does kind of not really matter. Because I think Reiner's just been really good. And he's been able to play pretty much everything else, right? He's played Zarya for this team. He's played Rein for this team. Winston for this team. Wrecking Ball for this team. He's played it all. And one bad hero I can let slide when he plays everything else at such a high level. And he's been such an elite level player for this team consistently as their tank throughout the majority of the season. So those are my role stars. I think there might be some interesting picks in here, some that people might not expect or might not agree with fully, but those are the ones who I went with. Stay tuned. Wednesday, I'll have my other awards, my big awards like MVP, Coach of the Year, Rookie of the Year, whatnot, as well as some other smaller awards that are just kind of mine that I like to give out. So stay tuned for that on Wednesday, but that is going to be all from me for today. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed, consider liking and subscribing for more content like this in the future. Comment down below your thoughts on my role stars. If you agree, disagree, whatever it is, let me know down below. That is all from me for today. Thank you all once again. Hope you're all staying safe and staying healthy. And until next time, bye-bye.